Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. My name is Bhante Suddhāso, and this evening we'll be looking at another discourse of the Buddha, this one on the 5 faculties. So I'll start with paying homage to the Buddha, and then I'll go through the discourse and give some explanations, and then I'll take any questions at the end. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So this time we're looking at a discourse from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 48, sutta number 50, which here is called the Āpana Sutta. Discourse given at a town called Āpana. And in this case, it's a conversation recorded between the Buddha and Venerable Sariputta. Venerable Sariputta being one of the Buddha's 2 chief disciples in wisdom, the other one being the Bhikkhuni Khema. So the Buddha is talking to Sariputta, so the discourse begins. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Angas, near the Angan town called Āpana. Then the Buddha said to Venerable Sariputta, Sariputta, would a disciple of the noble ones, who is sure and devoted to the Buddha, have any doubt or uncertainty about the Buddha or his instructions? And the answer from Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta says, Bhante, a disciple of the noble ones who is sure and devoted to the Buddha would have no doubt or uncertainty about the Buddha or his instructions. The word that's translated here as sure appears to be ekantagato. So ekantagato is from eka, which means one, anta, which means side or end, and gata, which means gone. So ekantagata, it has a sense of gone completely to one side. So one is completely devoted, thoroughly committed. One is convinced, completely convinced of something. So one who's gone completely to the Buddha, one who's completely committed to following the Buddha's instructions. So this is talking about someone who's really full of faith and devotion to following the Buddha's teachings. So, and the Buddha is saying, would someone who has that kind of commitment and devotion, would they have any doubt or uncertainty about the Buddha or his instructions? And Sariputta replies, no, this would not be the case. And Sariputta continues, he says, Bhante, you can expect that a faithful disciple of the noble ones will live with energy roused up for abandoning unwholesome qualities and embracing wholesome qualities. So that's akusalanang dhammanang pahanaya, so for abandoning unwholesome things, and kusalanang dhammanang upasampadaya, and for taking on wholesome things. So this is a brief statement of samavayama, right effort, which is the 6th aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path, which normally is given in a 4-fold description. So for the abandoning of unwholesome things, for preventing the arising of unwholesome things, for the cultivating of wholesome things, and for the maintenance and perfection of wholesome things. So normally it's given in a slightly more elongated form. Here it's given in just these 2 simple statements. So for the abandoning of unwholesome things and for taking on wholesome things, commitment to wholesome things, embracing wholesome qualities, as it says here. And he says they are strong and staunchly vigorous, not slacking off when it comes to developing wholesome things. So in other words, someone is really making a sincere effort to purify their mind, a sincere effort to identify and eliminate unwholesome mental tendencies and activities, and to cultivate wholesome things. And Sariputta says, Bhante, for their energy is the faculty of energy. So their virya So virya, these days I'm liking to translate virya as heroism, the quality of a hero. So the courageous, dedicated effort of a hero. So this is their heroic resolve, their heroic endeavor, their heroic commitment, their heroic effort, heroic energy. This dedication to doing what needs to be done. And I particularly like the image of the hero because we have this stereotype which has appeared in every human culture throughout recorded history of the hero, of the brave hero who sets out to do a difficult but important task. So we have the character of Saint George who set out to slay the dragon. So one of these classic hero stories from European mythology. So then here we have the hero, the Buddhist practitioner who sets out to slay their own defilements, who sets out to conquer and overcome their own unwholesome tendencies of mind. And second, Sariputta says, Bhante, you can expect that a faithful and energetic disciple of the noble ones. So notice this starts with faith. So someone who is devoted to the Buddha, and then based upon that devotion to the Buddha, then they produce this heroic resolve, this heroic commitment to slaying their defilements, to removing their unwholesome tendencies and cultivating wholesome ones. So then with that faith and that heroic resolve, it says then a disciple of the noble ones will be mindful. So they will have sati, mindfulness. They will have utmost mindfulness and alertness. They will be able to remember and recall what was said and done long ago. So this is actually one way of translating this line. So chirakatampi, chirabasitampi, sarita, anusarita. But there's actually another way of translating this, which is to be aware for a long time of what is done and what is said. So maintaining mindfulness and clear awareness of what's done and said. So it's this sense of over a long period of time. So not just for a brief moment and then you space out and lose track of things, but for a consistent, established period of time. So for a long period of time, one is able to maintain clear and complete mindfulness and alertness. And he says, for their mindfulness is the faculty of mindfulness. So again, we're laying out here the 5 faculties. So and it's interesting the order this is being given in. So it actually starts with saddha, but saddha as a spiritual faculty is listed at the end. So it's in a slightly different order in this discourse. So we have saddha, virya, sati, so faith, energy, and mindfulness. And then next, Sariputta says, Bhante, you can expect that a faithful, energetic or heroic, and mindful disciple of the noble ones will, relying on letting go, they will gain samadhi. They will gain unification of mind. So in other words, when somebody has faith in the Buddha, and they've produced this heroic resolve to abandon their unwholesome tendencies and cultivate wholesome tendencies, and they've made a strong commitment to cultivating mindfulness, an ongoing, continuous, long-lasting mindfulness, then it says, based upon letting go. So vosagga ramanang. Aramana means the basis, the object which the mind is focused on or fixated on. And vosagga means relinquishment. So having focused the mind on relinquishment, then one can enter samadhi. One can attain concentration of mind, unification of mind. So meditative concentration. So it's interesting here, the emphasis that the path to samadhi, to the correct kind of meditative concentration that the Buddha spoke about, the path to that is letting go. It's relinquishment, letting go of defilements, letting go of desire and aversion, letting go of self-centeredness. Then by letting go of all things, the mind starts relaxing into a unified, concentrated state of alert stillness, which is what we call samadhi. And he says, for their samadhi is the faculty of samadhi. So this is the samadhi indriya, the spiritual faculty of stabilized stillness of mind. And then Sariputta says, he says, Bhante, you can expect that a faithful, energetic, mindful disciple of the Noble Ones, whose mind is in samadhi, will understand this. Samsara has no known beginning. So samsara is this constant process of painful, unsatisfying states of being. So samsara has no known beginning. It says, no first point is found of sentient beings roaming and transmigrating, shrouded by ignorance and fettered by craving. But when that dark mass of ignorance fades away and ceases, with nothing left over, that state is peaceful and sublime. That is, the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, dispassion, cessation, nibbana. Sariputta says, for their noble wisdom is the faculty of wisdom. So this here is one of the beautiful recurring descriptions of the goal of Buddhist practice, the end goal of the path that we find in a few places in the suttas. So first it starts with this critical statement. So the statement that samsara has no discoverable beginning. So you can't find a first point. No matter how far back you look in time, there's always something before that. So there's no starting point to this ongoing flow of delusional, defiled, painful existence. There's no starting point. And we just keep wandering on, wandering through one state of existence after another, shrouded by ignorance and fettered by craving. So bound by our own desires, but roaming around blindly because we're blinded by our own ignorance and delusion. However, he says, when that ignorance ceases with nothing left over, then one is able to attain the peaceful and sublime state, which is the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, dispassion, cessation, nibbana. So this is nibbana, the final goal of Buddhist practice. And it is reached through wisdom. So the wisdom of clearly seeing everything as impermanent, unsatisfying, and impersonal. This is the direct path to the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, dispassion, cessation, and ultimately nibbana. It is odd here, by the way, that the translation translates panya as noble wisdom. So I don't know where he's getting the word noble from. So panya just means wisdom. So then the next line, he says, when a disciple of the Noble Ones has tried again and again, it says recollected again and again, but that can also mean applied mindfulness again and again, entered samadhi again and again, and understood with wisdom again and again, they will be confident of this. I have previously heard of these things, but now I have direct experience of them and see them with penetrating wisdom. And he says, Bhante, their faith is the faculty of faith. So this then is pointing to the genuine faith which comes in the mind of an awakened being. So one who has practiced the Buddhist teachings to the point where they have a deep personal experience of the truth of the Buddha's words. And then, as it says here, one has heard the Buddha's teachings before, But now that one has a personal, deep experience of them, then these truths become one's own personal experience, one's own undeniable reality. So then this is genuine faith. Genuine faith is the faith which comes through having attained awakening for oneself, through following the Buddha's instructions. And the Buddha replies, sadhu, sadhu, Sariputta. So the Buddha says, sadhu, so excellent, wonderful. And then he confirms Sariputta's answer by repeating back to Sariputta what he said. So the Buddha gave his confirmation that Sariputta had a correct understanding. So that's the end of this discourse. So a relatively short and punchy discourse on the 5 spiritual faculties. And again, normally when we give the list of the 5 spiritual faculties, it starts with faith. So saddha is at the beginning. And then based on faith, then one cultivates virya, so heroic effort, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom, panya. In this discourse, it's interesting in that it's actually giving faith at both the beginning and the end. So faith is mentioned twice. So first, there's a little enough faith that one has some devotion to the Buddha and a willingness to follow the Buddha's instructions. So an initial faith, which is not yet based upon deep wisdom, but rather is based on some initial confidence in the Buddha, some initial sense of the truth and value of the Buddha's teachings. So a provisional faith. And based upon that initial provisional faith, that initial sense of commitment to following the Buddha's teachings, then one cultivates the other 4 spiritual faculties. So one cultivates heroic energy, which is virya, cultivates mindfulness, sati, cultivates concentration, samadhi, cultivates wisdom, panya, and then through having cultivated wisdom, having cultivated these 4 spiritual faculties, then one then has a deep, unshakable faith. A deep, unshakable faith in the Buddha's teachings, a deep, unshakable faith in the truth of the Dhamma. So from that initial shallow provisional faith, then through cultivating the other 4 spiritual faculties, then one arrives at a deep, profound, unshakable faith through personal experience, personal confirmation of the Buddha's teachings through one's own awakening. So those are my thoughts on the discourse. So at this time, we can respect the sutta with 3 sadhus, and then I'll see if there's any questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And hello to all the people who have checked in online. Hello to Jerry, Rick, Lydia, Kumu, Mary, Monica, Maria, Manal, Olga, Kim, Karuna, Jarrett, Yankee, P. Lee, anyone, and everyone else who is joining in, Amaranta and Celestino, as well as everyone else. And first question here, Jerry says, how is the faculty of faith at the beginning of the sutta different from the faculty of faith mentioned at the end of the sutta? I think I just explained that in sufficient detail, but if you want further clarification, you can put in a follow-up question. And Mary says, hope you had an interesting time at jury duty. Wow, word gets around fast. Yeah, mostly it was just practicing patience as I waited for many, many, many hours only to be told that I wasn't going to be on jury after all. So interesting practice of patience. Monica says, ciao from Monica and Michael. Ciao, Monica and Michael. It was good having you here recently. Come back soon. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Here's one from Kumu. Kumu says, will these 5 faculties developed further become the 5 spiritual powers, as in the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas? And Rick similarly says, can you talk about how the 5 faculties become the 5 powers? Yeah, so it's not actually clearly stated anywhere in the suttas what the difference here is, but the understanding that I have is it has to do with the degree of development. So the 5 spiritual faculties are like abilities. These are things which we all have the ability to develop. But if they're still very weak, so for example, we all have the ability to develop faith, but if our faith is very weak, then it's not a support. Kind of like if you have legs, but your legs are very weak, well, it might be hard to walk, let alone run. Or if your arms are very weak, it might be hard to do handstands or yoga. But as you build up the strength of your arms and legs, then eventually you can walk, you can run, you can do the most complicated yoga postures, you can perform physical feats. So it's the same with these spiritual powers. At the beginning, everybody has these 5 faculties, these 5 abilities. So faculty is actually kind of a weird English word, even now that I've been used to hearing it in Buddhism for almost 20 years. Even now, when I hear the word faculty, I think of the school administration. I think of the employees at a educational institution. So I still have a hard time thinking of the word faculty in any other sense. But ability or capacity, 5 abilities. We have the ability to practice faith, to practice effort, to practice mindfulness, concentration, wisdom. So it's an ability that we all have, but it might be currently very weak, might be minimal. But as we work on it and build it up and build it up and build it up and build it up, eventually it becomes a powerful support, powerful strength. So you can rely upon the strength of faith once it's well developed. It's something that will get you through even very difficult and challenging situations when it's very well developed. Things which would normally upset you or disturb you. Well, if you have strong faith in Buddha Dhamma, then you'll see yourself through it without much suffering, without much difficulty. Similarly, if your virya is very strong, then when unwholesome tendencies arise in the mind, you'll crush them immediately. Or if your sati is very strong, then you'll be so aware of what's going on in your body and mind that you won't be blindsided by any unwholesome urge or impulse. If your samadhi is very strong, then your mind will always be so peaceful and calm that defilements won't have any way to get a foothold. If your wisdom is very strong, then you'll identify wholesome and unwholesome immediately. The mind simply won't go somewhere unwholesome because one's wisdom faculty will have already identified it as unwholesome, as dangerous, as poisonous. So then it becomes powers that you can rely upon. So powerful strengths and foundations of one's mental capacity. And Celestino says, does panya come from both vipassana bhavana and from daytime aware discernment of any thought, feeling phenomena? Yeah, that's true. Yep. And Rick says, is noble wisdom mentioned as to differentiate it from having worldly or mundane wisdom? You would have to ask Bhante Suddhāso, the translator here. I honestly don't know why he added the word noble there, because it's normally noble is a translation of the word arya, but the word arya does not appear in the sentence. So if I saw noble wisdom, I would think it was a translation of arya panya, but no such word arya appears in the text. So you'd have to ask the translator why he added the word noble in this sentence. I don't know. I actually used to only give Dhamma talks based from my own translations, precisely so I don't have to answer questions about other translators' decisions. So you can ask him if you're interested. And that's the last question online. Any questions from the audience here? No? Good. Okay, there's a question here. BC says, Sunday at Empty Cloud was my first visit to a Buddhist monastery. Great, welcome. Says, thank you for your warm welcome. Can you please share any recommended text to help me better understand the ceremony? I assume you mean the 5 precepts. That would be ideal to ask at Monk Chat Friday evening. So every Friday at this time, we have an open Q&A of anything. So that would be the ideal time to bring a question about the 5 precept ceremony. Or you can ask in person next time you're at the monastery. So hope you come again. And it looks like that's the last question. So I think we'll go ahead and end it this time with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you all next time.